come out? Who's here from room 1? This helps me to know who's. Okay. So can somebody check? James, can you check on room 1? What about room 4? Okay, you here? Prayer room? Prayer room? Okay, prayer room here? Okay, and I know the people who are in the sanctuary are here because yeah, I hope you got a chance to go get a break and whatnot. Okay, all right, so we got one other classroom that's coming out. Just a little housekeeping thing. I think we've done a good job, but even though where you're seated now may not have been where you were sitting during lunchtime, but just kind of police around the area where you are. I think we've done a pretty good. You've seen us walking up and down, picking up stuff, and there's a trash can back there and one over there too. So if you see something, we want to represent our presence here. I mean, I'm still excited. Some of us were uncomfortable eating in the sanctuary, but that was made available for us, and we honor that. Also, you remember I had asked you to pull out your evaluations, and hey, I heard that some of you have already turned them in. That's wonderful. Now, perhaps that was some of the people who knew they wouldn't be here tomorrow. So we really appreciate that, to work on that. Also, did you go by the registration table and pick up Taste of Social Louisiana, you know, the networking session that was planned and scheduled so you would have an evening activity that kind of continued where you could relax and network and talk and eat good food too, and they say it's not very far from here. Okay, so everybody should have picked up one of these cards so you can know where you're going. I was trying to let that other class come out. But what I will do is go ahead and introduce our speaker. Now, on your schedules, what do you see next on there? I heard it over here. Yeah, regional strategy sessions. So, having heard all of the wonderful input, we said our awareness was heightened, we were better informed, and many of us have said, I didn't even know that. And then we went all the way down to the judges, one who told us everything that they get before they even know what the outcome is going to be for the person who's going to come before them. And then we had actually a re-entry judge to come in and talk to us. And then you had your workshops. How many of you enjoyed your workshops? Weren't they awesome? Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get to peek in and sneak in on all of them, but I got little tidbits of all of them. So now, as how to incorporate and look forward to strategizing on a regional basis, this is where we are now. And your cup should be running over with all of the things you want to get back there and then get set up and get started. So we have David Cressy, who has practiced law for over 40 years, has been a city attorney for the city of Mandeville for 14 years, and deputy city attorney and city attorney for the city of New Orleans for 10 years. I ought to know you. We have to talk more. No, I don't know. I'm 68. How old are you? 77. Oh, he's only 77. Okay. His private practice was in real estate and construction law. He has been involved with faith-based prison ministries for over 20 years. I know you're happy to see all of this coming around. I know you are. He is currently the state coordinator for the Louisiana Reentry Advisory Council. And you remember I directed you to that book, that page in your program where you could see the council. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause who's already seated and ready to roll out the regional stuff, David Cressy.
Thank you very much. We are going to be talking about the Reentry Advisory Council quite a bit. I really want to lay out the structure for the Reentry Advisory Council and where it's going, which does include the strategy for coalitions throughout the state, you know, in the 9 regions. And you all know the story that, of course, the Reentry Advisory Council really grows out of the Second Chance Act, which was passed by the federal government in 2008 and required that every state have a task force of some kind to receive the funds and to administer the funds. So Louisiana already had a workforce commission in place, and then in 2010, it changed the name of that to the Reentry Advisory Council. Now, we heard a lot today about, well, not a lot, but in one of the sessions about the membership. There's 13 members on the council. Did start out to be a workforce type of a council. And not too many people on the council are actually reentry people. But I think we remedied that without necessary to go back to the legislature and get that amended. We have a very broad statute that's very liberal, and we can go any way we want with it. So we've really decided to take the 13-person council and use subcommittees to fill in things for victims, ex-offenders who have gotten out and have success stories. So we're going to do that with subcommittees. But the job, you know, I gave you quite a lengthy little handout, but it kind of gives you the whole history of how the Reentry Council came about and what it's supposed to do and what it's currently doing. But the job of the Reentry Council is to work with the DOC, the Sentencing Commission, and the legislature to develop innovative programs that will address the needs and access the risk of all state inmates. Programs that will help inmates make successful reentries into their communities. Programs will help them stay out and become productive citizens. When the federals passed the Second Chance Act, it talks about in the Federal Act to examine ways to pool resources and funding streams to promote lower recidivism rates for returning offenders and minimize the harmful effects of offenders' time in prison, jail, or juvenile facility on families, communities of offenders by collecting data, best practices in offender reentry from demonstrating guarantees that their agencies and organizations. Now, what it's saying is that we all know that everybody here is in reentry. All have like hearts for reentry, and it's a type of effort that takes people who really care about it. Our big problem and what the Second Chance Act is trying to remedy is the collaboration part. We just don't collaborate. It's not that we don't want to, we just don't know each other. And this is why this is a very historic event that we have this statewide conference, because it's bringing all of us together so we can all start to exchange ideas and exchange best methods. In one of the things I think is wrong is that if we all decided to get together, we could all choose up what grants we want to go to, so we won't compete for grants and won't compete with each other. The whole idea is collaboration so that every region has representatives on the council. And you'll see when I get to the organization chart that it's pretty well thought out. So we did create this task force. It is mostly workforce, but what we have done is right below it, we have the evidence-based commission from the Sentencing Commission, the evidence-based committee. They will do research. And what I think the structure of right now, the council is good because the 13 people have a lot of political clout. And you need political clout to get this done. One of the reasons we all know that we go to the legislature and the DA's Association or the Sheriff's Association is against the bill, it's not very likely it's going to pass, right? And it's because they represent a body of people that have united together. The reentry people, we're scattered all around, so we need to try to get together. And the RAC, which is the Reentry Advisory Council, should be that vehicle for us to unite, okay? Oh, by the way, this is like interactive, so if you want to say anything or make a statement, ask a question, just scream out. So, you'd already screamed then. Okay. Now, in the findings of the Louisiana legislature, it said, in order to pass this legislation, it said that we try to seek a more systematic approach to identifying obstacles that impact successful reentry and developing, implementing effective reentry strategies. Our research indicates that there are many practices by public housing officials, human resource personnel that are more restrictive than the law requires, so that housing and jobs are much harder for the offender to obtain than they need to be. And we know that, I know I come from St. Tammany Parish, and in the housing authority there, if you call the police, they evict you. So, so it's pretty stringent. The HUD runs those. They have two rules. You can't make methamphetamine on the premises, and you can't be a lifetime sex offender. The rest of the rules are made up by the local housing authority. And you know that Hanno, about a year ago, adopted EEOC's requirements on criminal background checks. So before, if you had any kind of criminal background, you could not get in public housing. Now we hope that the Hanno example will go throughout the state, so more public housing people will accept returning citizens. And another thing we have to identify, and I think it's one of the problems we have, is that there's some people that ought to be in jail, and they just have to be in jail. They should be. But the majority of people are not those. We know the majority of people are drug offenses or property offenses, and they really maybe could be rehabilitated. So when we talk about reentry, one thing people think we talk about early return, we think about shorter sentencing, and that really ought to come about, but that's not what reentry is about. What it's about is making sure the person who gets out gets some help. Because if you could be a second offense, possession of marijuana, you come out, you have a felony offense. And if it wasn't for ban the box, you'd have to put down a committed the felony, whether you were a hatchet murderer or second offense, possession of marijuana. This makes a big difference. The ban the box thing, as we know, is such a good tool to try to give the person that needs a job a chance to say, yes, I used to drink, I got 4 DWIs, but now, I've been on the wagon for 10 years. I know someone came to me, he had I think a burglary offense in 1970, and it's still on his record. So when we talk about legislation, we talk about legislation to help with expungement and things like, people can't get jobs if they can't get expungements. And expungements you can't get because they cost too much, right? Yeah. Just the cost is someplace. Now, they just did we went to the legislature, me and the Louisiana Justice Accountability Center and a bunch of other people, a lot of people in this room, and tried and got another bill passed. The idea being that this expungement bill that just was passed this last session doesn't resolve all the problems at all, but it addresses some of them, and it really gets our foot in the door talking about expungements. There are jurisdictions, it makes sense, there are jurisdictions in this country that if you get arrested and it's now processed, it's just automatically taken off your record. Here it's not like that. Here it's very expensive. The cost are $600 or $700. Now it's been lowered to $500. But the only reason that bill came through is that the Sheriff's Association, the DA's Association, the Clerks Association, every other association you can think of who's got an iron in the fire to get their dollars. In fact, the last one that they finally got to come to the table were the clerks. And really, it seems like that the dog is wagging the tail is wagging the dog. So it really, but it's a foot in the door. And there's a lot of good people working. But a person gets out of prison, he's really not finished his sentence because he's got to go try to get a job and try to get a house and try to get a place to go. and he's got a very difficult time doing that. We know that that Capital Area is doing a lot with mentorship, and I think Woods and you all are doing a lot with mentorship, which is really, really the answer to this. It's not just going into the prisons and talking to people, and I did that for a long time, and it's a good thing. But it's talking to them when they get out. That's the problem. And you know that some local sheriffs will let somebody out at 12:01 a.m. so he can get the other $26. And so the guy's out in a pretty bad neighborhood, nobody picking him up, and he's got a problem right away. So you know, it's been said a lot today that this is an economic problem. We all know that's a humanitarian problem. We've known that for years. But it's now grown into a monster that doesn't work. And the problem is that nobody wants to look at it to try to fix it because there's too much, the incentives are all going the other way, right? They're private prison corporations on the New York Stock Exchange, okay? So it is a big, big business. So the Reentry Advisory Council just being created doesn't solve the problem, right? It has to be somehow given legs. And there's a lot of people trying and pushing, but it hasn't really gotten up the run yet. And we've worked hard. Alex Preve's here. She's worked hard with doing the strategic plan, and Corey Sparks is here somewhere. And we've done a strategic plan. We have all the paper we need. What we really need is some effort. And the effort is not going to come from us. It's going to come from us. You know, it's going to come from all of us together. The next RAC meeting there is in Baton Rouge is December the 14th, I think. I think everybody ought to go and just sit there and say, look, where are you all? What are we doing? What's the agenda? What are we doing next? It's got to be driven by the people like us who care about this. You know, it's not going to just be turned on. It can get $1 billion tomorrow that won't make any difference. It needs some political involvement where we can support some of our good legislators who need some support. They're all by themselves, you know. Excuse me? December 14th, they'll be at the DOC office on Mayflower in Baton Rouge. But going back to the structure of the RAC, and you'll see there is an organizational chart at the last page. What we want to do, we being, I think, me and some other people, is put a subcommittee under the RAC of people like James Wyndham and Woods and people who are on the ground. And I think I saw Candy's here, Christoph. People that are on the ground doing this, and they could advise the council. Huh? You said you'd volunteer? We need you see a website on my thing, just write me, my website, I mean the email address, and just write me and tell me. Yes, ma'am. So tomorrow morning is going to be about structure? Great. Great. Well, we'll get to, I'm not going to go through the painstaking deal of the whole act, but you can read it. It's interesting to see how it came about. But I just put a little paragraph here. Virtually all the listed duties by the statute of the Advisory Council can be call for collaboration, cooperation of services rendered by the state and private stakeholders so that the offenders can have the best chance to be able to work productively, to actually find a job, and to be able to obtain housing. That's why I think it's so important that we all concentrate through the RAC to find out what grants we all need. Not everybody competing with everybody else for some grants. Some people do housing better, some people do employment. Woods?
I'm confused, and that's kind of normal. But I was looking for your name on the RAC. Are you not on there? It's not listed. Aren't you a part of the RAC?
Oh, yeah, no.
Wait, and I'm also, I thought you had said there are 13 members, and I'm only counting 11. So,
Oh, there should be 13. I'm not on it. No, I'm not on it.
oh, I thought you were.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
There's a whole statute that says who gets appointed and all that. I kind of ended up in the last year or so volunteering, so I'm just
Okay.
kind of.
Okay.
So I'm.
So there are a couple of people that are on it that aren't listed here in the program.
Well, it should not be that. I'm
Okay.
sorry. That's a it's something wrong if that
I mean,
happens.
I'm not good at counting, but okay, 13.
But
members.
at 13, right?
Okay.
At 13.
All right. Maybe we can get an update. Maybe yeah.
Everyone that registered, I have your email addresses, I'm sure, and I'll put that out. But part of this this whole event has been captured, video as well as audio, and all this information will be on the website. So.
Covington is serving in an advisory capacity, and David Cressy has been serving in an advisory capacity to help do capacity building with the RAC to help them form their vision and their objectives and goals.
I'm not named by anybody. I just named myself, actually. So I did. I made up the state coordinator. That's me. Well, it was just stuck there. Yes, ma'am.
Did any of these people on the Reentry Advisory Council, are they here today?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's got to disappoint.
Yeah, but it's not going to be a top-down. I agree with you totally. Yeah, I'm more frustrated maybe than even you, but in this point. But it's not going to be a top-down deal. That's just not going to work. You go to Ohio and other states, the governor is driving this. You look at the federals, the U.S. attorney's driving this. You know, the attorney general's driving this. You know, Eric Holder said, we will do reentry, right? Raymond's here, you all know, and you know, we will do reentry, and they're doing reentry. And while I'm on that subject, I have to say that one thing the federals are doing so well is information. One of the problems people don't hire people when they come out of jail is that they are afraid. They don't know what's wrong. And the federal reentry puts out Mythbusters. And it's really worth it to go online and find that, because it tells about Pell Grants and housing and all the things that there's so many myths and so much misinformation about. It straightens out. And that's really where this is. It's really a bottom-up situation. It's people like us who care about the people who are getting out of prisons. 95% of people get out of prison, so it's not. It's a real problem. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike, okay. The information you just said that we could find on the website, what is the website?
I really don't know. I'm sort of electronically challenged. But I think if you did Mythbusters and federal reentry, you'd pop up. James?
Yes, that website is the www. Department of Justice website, and on that website is a link to Mythbusters. That's www. departmentofjustice.gov, and you can get that information.
That's federal. Yeah.
www.usdoj.gov.
We all need mics.
The U.S. Attorney Office right here is going to bring that information.
I'll bring it in tomorrow and give it to you. I've got it in the car, but I'll finish up this tonight.
Yes, sir. Does someone have a question? No? Good. What I'm trying to say today that we have a structure that's good, okay? It's nothing wrong with the structure, but the structure can't do anything by itself. It's got to move somehow. And it's not going to move by itself. It's got to move when people want it to move and demand that it moves, okay? So there's enough of us, and when you go home, and Jerry was talking about the round tables, and I think that's an excellent idea to start in each of the 9 regions with round tables, and just start with the sheriff and the mayor, and start with people who will sit down and have some influence, and start with victims. And you know, it has to be done in every region, and to form the coalition there. I think Opelousas, Latoya is here. They just do it on their own, right? You all just there's people who work all the time. They do it voluntarily, and there may be a way too. There's a possibility that through Vista we could try to get Vista workers to go in each one of the 9 regions and try to be the focal point of trying to organize the region. But I just want to go back to the structure a minute. The ROEC was supposed to develop a statewide strategic reentry plan that describes the jurisdiction's long-term reentry strategy, including measurable annual and 5-year performance outcomes. It has done that. In fact, many people in this room were in the strategic planning session. It's supposed to, the RAC would identify and research evidence-based practices, policies, and programs that advance the ROC's mission regarding prisoner reentry. It's supposed to identify and eliminate state policies, legislation, and practices that create barriers to successful reentry. It advises the Secretary of DOC and the legislature about things that need to be changed to help reentry. We have a problem here too, in that there are so many collateral consequences of some of the legislation that's passed that people don't realize when they pass the legislation that it affects people they had no idea were there. And the American Bar Association about in the 90s recommended that every state do research on collateral consequences and have those consequences in the criminal code. So if a lawyer is representing someone and they're going to plead guilty, he ought to know maybe he can't be a barber or he can't be whatever. In fact, you couldn't be a barber here in this state for years, but if you had a felony record. The Barbers Board ignored that because it's ridiculous, okay? So there's a lot of things in the books that are like that, are conflicting. And I'd love us to get to a point where each legislator, before he or she puts a bill in, that they look at these collateral consequences and see what ripple effect that's going to have somewhere else that they didn't intend to do, which hurts people that didn't even know, that they don't intend to affect. So it did deserve to get the RAC did do a plan. We came up with some committees, and if you can now turn back to the last page, you'll see the organization chart, and it's hard to read, but it shows you that on the right side of that chart, when you look, are the reentry coalitions, okay? These are the 9 regional coalitions. And what happens is they have on the left side of that chart are all the support committees, okay? All the experts, the people who have experience with addiction and different problems. And what we wanted to do is to have all the coalitions form, I think as Jerry talked about today, they would have a representative sit on the reentry coalition, the main coalition. So everyone from each region will sit on the main coalition, and they'll send any requests they have for information or evidence-based research through that committee, and the committee would distribute it to the other committees and get the research done. This is just a conceptual type of a organizational plan, but it really follows a lot for what Jerry was talking about. It would have a central place for you as a coalition person to access some information from the RAC. And there'll be, but as between the different coalitions. Now, I go through in your handout there on page 11. It talks about all the resource committees, and they have pages of them. And there is a victim committee. We talked about that this morning. There's no victim represented on the RAC, and that's not by design. It was converted from something else. But if we started adding people to the RAC itself, we'd end up with a 50-person committee council, and it would be unworkable. So we decided to let the politically strong people, all appointed by the governor and all the political people, as the RAC, and let the other committees drive it. So you'll see Victims Committee and Prior Incarceration Person Committee. And I added this, and it's something we don't talk about too much, is entrepreneurship. There's a tremendous need for that. If you go to, was it SCORE? I've recently hooked up with them in Mandeville, and they're anxious to do something. And there's a lot of folks, who can get out and the most common thing is to get a lawnmower or do detailing cars and all that. But that works. That really does work. In fact, Ronnie Moore, I don't know if you know Ronnie with Catholic Charities. Ronnie is going to have this transitional work program so that if you're a CPA and you got out of jail the next day, you'll be weed eating. But it's okay, You didn't do that in how many years you've been in jail. You haven't made any decision. Now you can decide where to go weed eat. But not only that, it gives you a sense of accomplishment that you're coming back. And you can give your family a little bit of money, and you can you can't stay out forever looking for a job. So the transitional work programs really do work. But we have to try to get more entrepreneurship, more people who really would take a chance and maybe buy a pickup truck and maybe just get started doing something, some little job. But we miss that, I think. We're always talking about ban the box, which I know is a good idea, don't get me wrong. But there is another part of this that we have to talk about. There's some smart people getting out who have a lot of sense. So I listed in my little group the coordinator. The coordinator is what I did for a long time. I ran around the state just meeting people and trying to introduce them to each other. So, and it was amazing that, I didn't realize that, there was somebody else that thinks like I do. So, we have to really kind of come out of the closet here and know each other. Now, some of that protection, some of that lack of coordination comes from, I think, that we don't want to give up our employers. We have an employer that works well with us and all that. And if we tell somebody else about this employee, it's going to send somebody who's not going to work out, and it's going to ruin my deal. I think we've all kind of experienced that. One of the things I think we'd like to get to is some kind of accreditation deal, some kind of a certification that said if you have a reentry program, I think, a lot of preachers just have a trailer, and they do reentry, and there's nothing there really they're not doing anything. But there ought to be some certification, some minimum kind of a thing that you do if you're going to do one of these reentry organizations or not coalitions, but service providers. Because we all know, too, that we always have this big liability ghost looking at us. So if a guy gets a job, he has a criminal record, and he gets in a wreck in your truck, it's because he was smoked marijuana. It's just that they don't always have any relationship. One of the problems we have there, I know a lumber yard to give anybody a job that they screened with a felony, but they can't drive the trucks because the insurance companies won't insure them. So there's elements of this thing running around, so many of them. But if we had the certification, it would include this aftercare, this mentoring, which is, to me, one of the most important parts of this whole effort is the mentoring part. That I really pick you up at the jail, and I take you I take you somewhere, and you get to go, you have to go see your parole officer, your probation officer. I take you over there, and I developed this relationship. And I think Checo's here. It's not a spiritual thing. It's not a Bible-driven thing. But that's what it ends up being, right? Because you're being nice to somebody and charitable and you're there for them. That's an integral part of this whole deal. It takes involvement. And, you know, again, this is the choir, and I know that, but it takes involvement in other people to get involved. And I do believe, you know, it's a really a Tea Party issue, as we all know. If you, I mean, I know anyway. If you ask someone how much does it cost to keep someone in jail, they say $25,000. So that's not close, right? That's not close. His kids and his wife and her husband, they're going to be in everybody's going to be in food stamps. The kids, you know, the research shows that the kids are more likely to go to jail themselves, right, if they have parents in jail. So the aftermath, the ripple effect of this is much bigger than $25,000. And then the guy or the woman who gets out is crippled in that she can't get a job because of the record she's got. And she can't get the record off because you need more money. If she had a job, she could afford the $700 for the costs. And a lawyer told me the other day he charges $2,000 to do that. So you're talking about $2,700. I mean, nobody, you know, if you could do that, you know, I really was going to go into my telephone speech too, but if you all ever try to get anybody to call you from prison on the telephone, a lady comes on and asks you for your credit card. So I got a guy calling me all the time, and he has guys around him. They give me the phone numbers, and I call their mothers to say, you know, he's okay because the mother doesn't have a credit card. You know, I mean, it's just completely crazy. It just used to be, you know, a collect call. And something has to happen with the Public Service Commission. You know, again, this is not a plug-in deal. This is not, we just get the RAC and off it goes. There's so many moving parts in this thing. And as we all know, it all goes down to one population. All the deals go down to the people who can't afford it at all. That's where it all ends. And everybody's revolving around that. And it's not because it's a cynical thing. It's because it's the way it evolved. In just a jail situation, we know that half of our people are in jail, local jails, more than half. And they don't get any programs, right? They don't get anything. They may get a GED, something like that, but they don't get anything. So the whole, it costs like $26 a day to keep them in a local jail. It costs $55 a day to keep them in state penitentiary. So nobody's making a big move to get everybody out of there and build, you know, penitentiaries or to give services at the local jails. So, and you know that in the 90s when it was overcrowdedness and the federal court ordered that they disperse some of the people out of state penitentiary, they all went to parish prisons, which was a great temporary fix. But it never came back. And what happened is that all the sheriffs got hooked on the $26 a day, and real estate investors came in and said, wow, and DOC made a deal that they'd promised them 40% occupancy. So, man, that's a pretty good real estate deal. I'm swaying. This is my venting time, so you listen. A reason I'm saying all this is that we need to get together. We need to coordinate our efforts. We just can't be us. It's got to be everybody involved. Back to the RAC, the coalitions, among the duties of the council is the duty to create and support local reentry councils and coalitions with community stakeholders throughout the state. The state has already been divided into 9 regions, and each one of these regions have a regional council, will have a regional council, which will be referred to as a regional coalition. This is the aim. This is what we hope to do with the RAC, is to have these 9 regions all established and running, okay? That the coalitions throughout the state will be encouraged to communicate with each other and share insights into programs that work and those that don't. They will also be able to share expertise in programs that other coalitions don't know about that could be available to the other coalitions. Along with that, if you see on page 18 of the little presentation, we're developing a coalition package. And the coalition package would have like a little handbook in it and have some different legal structures, nonprofits or whatever legal structure someone would want. And that handbook would help a layperson, what I mean is someone who's not that aware of reentry to get into this and start. Some mother or some father whose son or daughter is in jail is, I really want to do something. They're about to come out and I don't know what to do. And they could get this handbook and just start reading on how to do it, sort of the ABCs on how to do it and what legal structure may be used. And of course, not giving legal advice as much as saying you need to think about an organization of some kind and how that organization will run. And you have to decide whether you want to be tax exempt. And so that little, hopefully, the RAC will be able to go to the particular budding coalition and help them get started. Now, the last part of this I'm really going to talk about is the aftercare, because I think that we talked about this before. Many churches want to go into prisons and jails, and they do, and it's a good idea. And I did that for 15 years. But it's when the people get out that we really need to concentrate now. Congregations have to open their doors and take people in. Checo Liancey's here, I think, and Checo's story is that a church, little storefront church, took him in when he was 20 years out of Angola, when he was in Angola 20 years. And they helped him, and they got him on his feet. He would have never made it but for that, and he says that. So we have to think about these churches that can already have the congregations that have this like-minded idea of helping people and put it to work with mentorship and following people and having them come into your congregation. Pastors ought to encourage that. I'm sure a lot of pastors do, but more need to. I run out of paper and I run out of speech. Ta-da! No, that's my, any questions? I do a little dance. I have time. Any other questions? I just want everybody, you have my website, my email address. Let's all kind of talk to each other and try to get together. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm a small business owner, and I'm looking at the structure, and I'm not really seeing, like you mentioned, entrepreneurship. How can someone who wants to mentor, even people who are presently incarcerated, in how to begin to own their own businesses before they even come out? Because there are a lot of resources now that can help someone who may be an artist, who may want to do something in that vein that can help them to build a business for themselves, and also how to educate small businesses on how to get themselves prepared, the infrastructure, prepared to be able to accommodate someone who is coming out, to be able to help to provide jobs, you know, even on a small scale, to mentor someone in that way. Because I'm not seeing, and the conference has been absolutely wonderful, but I don't see small business represented in someone like myself who really, really has a passion for wanting to be there for someone who is coming out.
Well, you can contact SCORE. It's retired people. They'll help you with a business plan. They'll help you, with financing. And the business plan is a great idea because it makes you, once you go through it, you find out if you had a good idea. You may get to the end and say, wow, I shouldn't do this. Also, universities. I know Southeastern has a great program. UNO does. I don't know about the rest of the state, but most universities, if you call or just go online and look for that, universities have that, and you can just go access, just walk in. We did it, my wife and I did it at Southeastern, and they helped us a whole lot. And you have all this micro stuff, Kickstart, the microfinancing like Kickstart, where you could get, everybody gives you like $25 or something.
I guess what my question is, maybe two-part, as pertaining specifically to being a part of this committee, of this council, how can small business be represented? How do I contact, what do I need to do to say, look, I can build a coalition of small business owners. How do we fit into this construct to be able to be a part of this diagram so that you guys, we're in the game helping? we're in the game providing feedback, or we're receiving data on, how reentry programs. There was a young man that spoke that said that, people who are incarcerated make better employees. They're more loyal. Right. And that's the kind of information that small businesses need. I guess that's what I'm trying to ask, if anyone can ask.
Well, I think, you could really attend the RAC meeting and voice that, or you could contact Brett Covington at DOC and tell him that and, try to get into the process. It's not that hard, and they'll get you involved.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, go to the next RAC meeting, and you could be the person that starts that whole conversation. You can be the person that it grows from. You could be the nucleus of that, being born into the RAC as it exists today. I just was speaking with James, and the RAC meeting is going to be on December the 11th.
14th. Is that right?
It's the 11th.
Is it? The website said 14th.
You know what? Here's what we can do. We'll send a blast out to everyone as soon as we confirm the next date for sure. Right. And the time, and it's going to be at 504 Mayflower here in Baton Rouge.
Right. I went online today just looked up the Reentry Advisory Council, and it had the 14th, and there's one in January. So I'd really advise, it's a way you can make your voice known, that the RAC can have to do. It's not that it doesn't want to do anything, I don't think. It's just no motivation. And it's tough if you know anything about the Sentencing Commission. They get shredded by the DA's Association, and they're good people. I think Judge Wicker was here this morning, and she's amazing how tough she's been trying to get some changes made. And we all know that the two things. One, it's not reentry, sometimes it's entry. Sometimes if a guy's never been part of the community, you never known what to do, that's why he's in jail. So we have to think about that kind of thing. But I'd go on a website and see when the meeting is, and attend. I'll be there, so I'll be one. Somebody else come. And that will make the RAC work. It will work. We have a structure that's good. We don't need to go back to the legislature. Yeah,
if we were to go to that meeting, what would the agenda be like in that meeting? Would there be opportunity for us to address the RAC, or would we just be watching? I mean, what would that agenda be like?
Well, it's pretty casual right now, so
okay.
You would be able to talk to everybody there. Now,
okay.
whether they would probably recognize someone to speak, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they've ever done it.
Okay.
Okay, it's something that there was never a reason. There was never anybody there. So if we're starting something new, and like he said, the question about entrepreneurship may drive something, it's got to start from us.
Okay. Well, let me follow up question. I know the org chart makes a lot of sense on paper. Do they want that org chart to be active, and or is it just an org chart? I'm not trying to be rude, what we're doing in Northeast Louisiana as a coalition, we're doing and we'll continue to do, and we'll do better because we've met today. How do they want us to interact with them? Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. They know you exist, obviously.
Right.
But they want you to interact with them. They want you to come up and go to the meeting. And am I answering your question?
Yeah.
No, not quite.
Okay.
Wait.
It's tough. Oh gosh. How do I say? It's tough. It's tough for me to be motivated to come December 14th, to back down here when they didn't even come here. And so we've got a hurdle to jump to develop those relationships. You see what I'm saying?
I know, but that ought to get you upset enough to go to the meeting, okay?
Okay.
And say, I was at this meeting. I came from Monroe to Baton Rouge. No, I'm still not getting it, Woods? What? I didn't get your answer? No? No, you did. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You can be politically incorrect. I'm retired. I don't care.
I'm going to talk as an ex-offender. I am an ex-offender. I took 3 days off from work, my gas, 5-hour drive, and I work in the reentry. I not only work with the adults, I work with the juvenile drug court voluntarily. This was my one opportunity, I feel, to meet these state representatives and get info from them. What more can I do to help? I feel totally dissed
Yeah, but
when
you
they
should
did
be.
not show up
I understand that.
at all.
But this is the beginning. Your showing up is going to push them. Next year, they'll be here. I guarantee you, next year they'll be here. You understand? You did what you did. It's going to get back to them, and certainly from me, it's going to get back to say all these people came and they wanted to hear the people that are really running this council. They wanted to hear, look at their faces and see who they are. And it didn't happen. So I think we all ought to complain about that. This is going to take political action. I'm not talking about revolution, just political action.
We determine where it's going to be next year, and we start that right now. I applaud what you're saying, and I applaud your energy and your effort. But we're going to use that to put pressure, not only in the RAC, but any other legislative body, municipal body, because we're wanting to, see, it's not about reentry. We keep talking about people coming out of jail, and it's great, but really what this whole thing is about is restoration. Giving people the opportunity to live the life that they intended to live, okay? However, we got to do our part. And our part is never ending. We're going to hit some brick walls. We're going to run into some people who are politically motivated to do just the opposite of what we want them to do. But we've got to be ever vigilant and constant. What does the word say? In season, out of season. And we can't afford to allow ourselves to get despondent. We can't allow ourselves to get disillusioned. We've got to be wise as a serpent and as sweet as a dove, because what is the objective that we're seeking? Every person have a job, every person to live in a comfortable home, and having safe neighborhoods. That's what it's all about. And so if we do that, then we will change the face of Louisiana. And it starts here. Now, every person in the RAC is a person. Every person in the Louisiana legislature is a person. They go to somebody's church. They go to someone's store. They do all the same things we all do. We need to be talking to people every day. You know people that you, legislators, you know your senators, you know you should. And if we do our part, then we will make an indelible imprint that will shape what reentry is really going to be about in our state. We start right here. Now, be mad, please. Be upset, please, but let's be wise. Let's be determined to do the things that we got to do starting today. And this is what this is all about. Now, tomorrow we're going to continue this conversation because we want to go to what are we going to do next? Not just have a conversation and vent and talk about all the wonderful things that we've did today. That's great. But what do we do next? And I know I've taken more time than I
I'll give you some of my honorarium for that, you know. You always wanted to be in a church and preach. I know, Jane.
I actually have a question, and maybe it was in the handout and I just didn't find it. How often does RAC actually meet?
Once a month, I think. Every 3 months? Quarterly? Yeah, it's quarterly. I'm sorry. I just saw there was one in December and one in January. That's why I was wondering why it was every month. But it's quarterly. That's true. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, David, Mr. Cressy. All right. So the presentation, you remember I gave that example about the iceberg? Who remembers what the base of the iceberg was? Represented the community. And then everything else trickles up, and that's what we see. And also, how many of you attended this conference last year? Right. This is the first one. Okay, so This is the first one. The best is yet to come, and the best starts with the next presenter and goes on and on and on until next year. Okay? So the feedback that I know you have on those, this is not one of them, on your evaluation is going to help us with the next best, that R word. Everybody say what? Re-entry. And if you look on the back of your program, real fast, who's going to say it first? When is the next one? When is the next one? Where? Okay, all right. November the 12th and the 13th. Okay, so from your feedback, that's going to be the beginning of the next best conference. But in between that, you're going to be doing and integrating yourself with all of what you've learned today. So the next conference may need to be more than 2 days. Because look at what you've done and how you're speaking, and this is a day and a half. So the next one, I can tell you right now, needs to be 2 whole days. So that'll give us a half more in there. Okay. All right. So everybody's got the card if they want to continue the networking and the interaction and whatnot. And I don't think I'll get to come and engage the shindig because I got to check out of that hotel tomorrow and find somewhere to stay tonight. I got a lot of former employees and friends around, so I've been making calls. And then everyone's coming back tomorrow, and what time do we reconvene? 9 o'clock. And there's an activity, and tomorrow is all interaction, engagement, activity, getting ready for the next year and the that's yet to come. The what? The best, okay, is yet to come. Now, I know I see that on the bottom of your email, but there's a song too, isn't it? But I got to remember, I know where I am. So what is that song? Is it secular or is it a Christian song? I don't know. You know the song, right? Yeah. Yeah. It is? I don't see it in my hymn book. Okay. All right. Well, and also make sure you're making notes, and you have the website on page 11. You have the complete list of everyone who served on the planning committee. How many of you are still in the house right now? Of course, you'll see them tomorrow. Would you stand, please? The planning committee for this event. That's right, the round of applause. The planning committee for this event. Woo-hoo! All right. You have their email addresses in that book on page 11. I am going to tell them. So you can wear them out with those with emails, okay? To get the input in and the input going. And I know I gained a lot from having served as a federal volunteer chaplain at San Quentin with clearance all the way through maximum security. I can tell you back then, 87, 88, and 89 is when I served. We weren't talking about none of this. And they were just glad that you came to hear them and when the inmates there. But I was just thinking, I said, my Lord, look how far we have come. All right. Everybody say that. Look how far we have come. But the best is yet to come. Okay, we got to. All right, I'm going to close out the day with our chairperson. And where's your co-chair? Okay, all right. So you're just going to officially say goodbye to everybody.
First, and just thank you all so much for coming and staying. We'll look forward to having all of you all back tomorrow morning, and we expect you all to come out and fellowship with us later this evening and to partake of the food and the drinks and stuff. So please look to take advantage of that. But once again, thank you, and we will not drop this ball. Okay? That's my promise to you. All right. Thank you all for being here. See you all tomorrow.